Is your mic on?
I don't think I'm live.
Yes.
I am live. I'm live.
All right. So we're going to talk about the future of WordPress. And to talk about the future, maybe it's good to take a brief look at the past. So who of you know how old WordPress is? Anyone?
And we're going to try and keep it interactive. So move those arms a bit and use them.
Yes, please. It's 14 years old.
Yes.
Right?
It's a bloody teenager.
It's a teenager. So it's old. And it's been very successful in helping people manage content. And one of the reasons it's been very successful is it's had, since version 2, I think, it's had a Wysiwyg editor that you all know and probably love and maybe also hate a little bit. And I just wanted to take a look at this editor for a brief second and just appreciate it for what it is, because it's really, really awesome. Like, you can just set a title for your post, manipulate a permalink, and then you have an editor that looks and feels very much like Microsoft Word does. Like, you just know how to use that. You can edit text. It's not very fancy, but for most of the things that we've wanted to do in the past, it's been really, really useful. In those 14 years, we've also seen like an incredible rise of popularity of WordPress, but also a rise of this phenomenon called page builders. Who here has used a page builder or knows someone who uses a page builder?
Two.
I would almost be surprised if there's anyone not raising their hand. Those things are incredibly popular, and they are for a reason. Because this thing is lacking also in many, many respects. Aside of the page builders, we've also seen the rise of more simple web content management platforms like Wix, Squarespace. Medium has been praised for its ease of use. Maybe you should note there that it's been praised for its ease of use by a certain niche of users. Doesn't mean that it's the most usable platform out there, but its users are very vocal about it, its ease of use. WordPress needs a little update to keep up with all those developments. And what's that update called?
So the update is called Gutenberg, after the person who developed the first printing press. Which is why I said, okay, why choose a small name? That is a pretty big statement just by calling it Gutenberg. It looks like this right now. This is different, and at the same time it's not in many ways. I hope we'll get to the point where it actually doesn't feel as different as the old editor, but has a ton of new functionality. But right now it's a pretty big shift in a lot of things. The most important concept here probably being blocks. So as Omar is writing, a block is created. But you can also, when you hit the plus button, insert new types of blocks. There's a lot of things that you could do with this, and a lot of options and ways of thinking about it. Mostly because in the way we're looking at this now, you suddenly see that there's more things to content than just text. As an SEO, I get very worried when I look at this. Because if people can do more things than just create text, they're going to do more things than just create text, and they should be creating text, because that's what Google gets. There's a lot of things that worry me. The biggest thing that probably worries me still about this whole phenomenon is this. Where did they hide it?
Block settings.
Anyone who thinks that this is a good idea for the web to have is insane. Because if everybody can do this, then everybody will do this. And the web will turn incredibly bloody ugly. We've had this time, it was called MySpace. And most of the people that work at Yoast have never had a MySpace account because that's how old it is. Michiel did, which sort of proves the point.
Maybe it's good to ask why this feature is put in this project. So a dedicated team of mostly automaticians, but like from the WordPress community, is working on Gutenberg. Actually, Yoast is involved more and more heavily in the development of the new editing experience for WordPress as well. One of the things is that as it stands now, and as the leads of this project look at it, it's still more or less a proof of concept, like a prototype, something that needs to prove that this new editing experience works and enhances your workflow and your publishing workflow, and your life basically as an editor. So we're trying new things. We're trying tons of things. We're seeing like major updates of Gutenberg released every week with tons of changes. Things are changing really fast. Things are also improving, but sometimes also regressing, depending on who you ask. And this doesn't look like the way it's been going right now. It doesn't really look like we're working towards an MVP for the WordPress editing experience. We're mostly still in the phase of
minimum
prototyping.
viable product. So the minimum version, the minimum functionality that we would need to get this into WordPress. So the goal is, this is not a small goal, the goal is to replace everyone's editor, the classic one that we just looked at, with this.
And
which worries us, as you can imagine.
And which excites us also
and
at the same time.
At the same time, it's really exciting. Because one of the things we could do, let's talk about some of the good stuff. One of the things we can do, so you have these block settings here, which are all fun. But what we will start doing at some point is show here, you know, in a block on the right-hand side, the graveyard of the internet, as Carl called it so nicely this morning in WordPress. It's actually a very functional space of the editing screen. But we'll be able to give you feedback on specific paragraphs. So now we tell you in our readability analysis below the text somewhere, we tell you this sentence is too long. Now, as you're editing it, we'll be able to tell you on the right-hand side, this sentence is too long. That's in context. It's very powerful. And it actually, because of how we can handle and get that content, we can actually make it a lot faster too. There's a lot of things that we really, really like about Gutenberg.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we've done a couple of posts on Yoast.com. We've had some discussions. Most of them were friendly. And I think we're reaching the point where I can say that technically, the Yoast team and the core editor team that is developing this, which is mostly people working at Automatic, which is the company that owns Jetpack and WooCommerce and WordPress.com. I think we agree on most of the technical stuff now.
Yeah, so I guess a good thing before we start handing things over to the audience to stress here is that this is like anything in WordPress, the user has to stand first. So if this isn't going to be a dramatic improvement in terms of user experience, it's probably not going to land. But in order to provide a better user experience, we need technological innovation. So what we had in the past was something that was rendered with a very old PHP system and was very hard to enhance. The goal of this, the long-term goal of this project is to actually leapfrog all the other web editors around on the web right now. In order to do that, I don't think it's enough to have this block functionality. I mean, building a post like it's a project of Legos sounds very nice. If the blocks don't get in the way and you still also have the feeling that you're editing text, that's awesome. But there are other editors that do that. I think the fine-grained control in technical terms that this gives us to add like a lot of functionality on top of that is what will make our editor leapfrog the rest. So what can you think about? Things like collaborative features, like you can work on a post on 2 different computers at the same time, like in Google Docs. You can comment on different sections in the text and do your editorial work actually in the post-edit page, that kind of stuff. We could provide contextualized feedback on a paragraph level, on a blog level, on an image level, all that kind of super fine-grained functionality. And it's things like that are definitely going to push the usability of this like to a whole other level. And that's the kind of things that really excite us. And for this, we also need the technological change.
Yes. And we need to play with it, work with it, test it, have real users test it instead of just developers. We've done this in the office recently, and in fact, funnily enough, a lot of the things that we highlighted after testing in the office with people who are not technical, and we have plenty of those at Yoast too, a lot of the things that we highlighted have already been fixed in the last release. So the editing toolbar that's now back on top was gone and was always highlighting somewhere around your cursor, which was very annoying, but that's fixed. And so we're seeing a lot of rapid improvement. So where does our hesitance come from? I think that's good to tell as well. We like the project in itself. The hesitance comes from the fact that Matt Mullenweg, in his post announcing this, said that he wanted to release this by the end of this year or January next year. And to be honest, if you ask me, this will be ready for release by the end of 2018, not 2017. And there's a big gap there that we all have to work on. I know that we spoke to the Jetpack guys yesterday, and they were like, they haven't done as much with Gutenberg yet either. I don't know how hard WooCommerce is working on this, but we're even the big guys. I mean, we have the large development teams. We can fix this.
There's very few examples of plugins who already started to really integrate. I have a question for the audience. Who here uses WordPress without plugins? So, who uses WordPress with plugins? Yeah, that's like everyone, right?
There is no WordPress without plugins. But at the same time, most plugins are built by very small groups of people. Most plugins are built by 1, 2, 3 people shops, if 3 people at all. We at Yoast are now at 70 people, and over 20 developers, but we are the exception. We're not even close to the rule. I think after us, there's in terms of plugin development shops, there's like 1 or 2 other companies that have as many developers and no one else, and all the other ones are below 5. And we're expecting those people to make changes into their integration with WordPress on a few months' notice, and that's simply not something we can do. Which is why we're having very hefty discussions. Because we can do that, I think our integration will be awesome. And people will love that. But the integration for other SEO plugins will probably not be as awesome. Now, we don't really mind that part. But we do mind the part where all the other plugins aren't working either.
Yeah, so Gutenberg at the moment has a lot of integration challenges. And the team behind Gutenberg takes these quite seriously. It's not that they don't think about them. It's just that the focus has been on creating a fully functional, very usable editing experience, and not so much on how that would look in the WordPress project itself. So there are no real solutions yet that were shipped, at least, that make it possible for plugin authors to integrate with Gutenberg on another level than just creating like a custom block. So what you have is you can create a custom block. So you can tap into this little menu here and add a block of your own. Like for instance, how would we integrate with that? We have a local SEO plugin. What it does is it, for instance, gives you a couple of widgets that you can use with opening times. We could create a block here that lets you insert the opening times into a post. That's the kind of thing that's already possible with Gutenberg. But
basically everything that's a widget will probably become a block.
Exactly.
So everything that is available as a widget for the sidebar, etc., will now easily be converted into a block, and most shortcodes will probably be converted into a block too, if the developer does it right. That means that you don't have to think, you have to know all these weird shortcodes, but you actually get an interface in which you can type some metadata and that generates something that you can actually see, which is cool. There's something else that we probably should show as well, which is the benefit of having blocks. Who of you here goes into the HTML view of posts often? There's quite a few of you. So this will really make your life a lot easier, because you can now edit one block as HTML instead of having to go into the HTML editor and look up where the bloody hell you were within your long post. This is the sort of stuff that we can now do that is much more powerful than what we could do before.
Can you show the categories and tags module on the right?
Sorry, which one did you?
Like in the document view of the settings.
Yeah.
Then the categories and tags. So what Yoast Seo puts here, for instance, is a possibility to select a primary category. This thing right now in the old editor is rendered with PHP, but in the new one, it's rendered with JavaScript. So our integration to allow you to select a primary category has to be completely rebuilt, basically. And this is the case, and it doesn't really offer us a way to do that yet. So the API to do that isn't there yet. Same thing for the featured image. When you upload a featured image that is not big enough for Facebook to actually render, we'll give you a validation message like, upload a bigger featured image, and we tell you what to do. That kind of integration, broken with Gutenberg, we currently don't have a way to fix that. Then we have the meta box, of course, which everyone knows, that integrates heavily with the content because, you know, it's the main thing there is a content analysis tool, so we need to be able to watch the content. But what they've done right now, and it's all work in progress, is they put all of the meta boxes inside iframes. So we cannot even reach from within our iframe frame, we cannot even reach the content.
That we basically render a second page within the page, and those two are not necessarily connected to each other. Okay. So we render the Yoast meta box right here.
You can click it open.
I have to scroll to it, yeah. But the Yoast meta box currently does not have access to the content on that page, which sort of defeats the purpose of having the meta box there entirely.
The Gutenberg team has pretty much said, well, meta boxes aren't going to be the preferred way to integrate with Gutenberg, with the new editing experience. And I appreciate that from a developer's perspective, but right now, meta boxes are the preferred and almost only way to integrate with the editing experience. So to deprecate that in one go, I think is a bit too bold. And it's really going to hurt the ecosystem. So this is a change with a dramatic impact on what WordPress is, how you know WordPress, how WordPress integrates with its plugins, and how useful actually WordPress will be. If this is done right, WordPress will be incredibly useful, much more useful than it is. If this is done too fast, or mistakes are being made, or trade-offs are being made in a different way, we might end up in a messy place.
One of the other things that's cool, and why we will probably not need as much of our meta box as we have right now, is this. I've just clicked publish, which doesn't immediately publish the post anymore. It opens a small drop down now, but we will be able to change it. And we will have a pre-publish workflow and a post-publish workflow. The pre-publish workflow is a very good place to put stuff like, hey, a snippet preview, this is what your post will currently look like in the search results. Write the bloody meta description. A post-publish workflow could have stuff from Jetpack for, let's post this to Facebook and Twitter automatically.
Which is amazing. If we would have that kind of workflow stuff.
Which would actually make the whole editing process a lot better and a lot less confusing for a whole lot of people. Because right now you have to make all these decisions before you hit that publish button, and you have to think of them. So there's a lot of thought that has gone into this, and we really do appreciate all of that, and I think that there's a lot of work to be done. You probably have questions, so do ask them. We will try and answer as many of them as we can. We don't know everything either yet. And there's a couple of other things I want to touch on later on. But if you have questions about Gutenberg, raise them now, because then we'll go in deeper later on. Do we have the box? Actually?
Here we have a question. Yeah.
Jimmy, throw it. Oh, we have one here. Can we? That's Michiel's mic. I don't know who's doing the. Whoa! The catch box is way more fun anyway.
Seeing those colors and stuff, is it possible to deactivate these with a filter or whatever?
Which things would you want to?
The block settings.
Yeah, those color settings. Those horrible color settings.
Right now, you can. Let me go into a block so I can show it.
Now you're in HTML view, so.
So right now what you can do is you can provide colors that show up here, but you cannot remove the color selector which is there as well, which allows me to make the most awful things in the world. So no, which is one of my main complaints, because I don't want, if this ships, I'm going to cry.
Do you remember the home pages from the 90s?
We have done this. And I actually do think that we have a responsibility here too. So if we do something like this, I think that we will end up building something that actually automatically checks the accessibility of the background color and the foreground color that you chose, because there will be a lot of combinations where people can't even bloody read your text. I know I have hard enough time as it is when someone is bright enough to put yellow on a red background, because I simply can't bloody read it. And with me, about 10% of men out there is in some statistics. So there's a lot of things there that I think we have a bigger responsibility in than we currently showing in what we have there. Right. Well, there's a mic coming to you. It makes it a lot easier for me to hear you.
The mic is currently being collected.
To me, it doesn't really seem like a change compared to the current content.
So I think what's going to be the biggest change in many ways, if you know the current editor well, then you can probably work with it easily. The problem that we have with WordPress is that we're still growing, and not a little, but WordPress is still growing quite fast. So we're getting new users in all the time. And those new users currently have to learn about shortcodes, about meta boxes, about widgets, before they can use the whole system. And all of that will be replaced by blocks. So the whole concept of WordPress will become a lot simpler for people to get into.
For developers.
Yeah, I get
Not
that.
necessarily for
Well,
others.
I think for end users too, because shortcodes are a very, very weird bloody hack.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that the way this stores data is for developers scary as well too, because it uses a sort of commenting model in the HTML.
You can show that. Shall I show that?
I think, can I show it?
If you go to the...
Yeah, what I meant is
right,
that changing colors is possible today as well. And it's also a matter of...
It's something you can disable right now, and it's not something you can, disable in Gutenberg right now. It's one of the first things I disable for most people.
But I really like the question, because my main concern is also that actually for 99% of use cases, I don't think this changes a whole lot at first sight. Like, if you just want to go in and edit a post and have a Wysiwyg editor and do stuff,
Agreed.
that might still work like you expect it to work. But if at the same time that breaks a lot of other stuff, then where's the value in that? So we need to make sure that if we break something, and WordPress is not known for breaking backwards compatibility, maybe it's known for breaking, but it's not known for breaking backwards compatibility. We need to make sure it's worth your while. And right now, I don't feel like just having a block editor would make it worth your while.
No. So one of the things we're proposing is actually doing just a middle bit.
Yeah.
And leaving everything on the side as it is for now. So leaving the publish box as it is right now, leaving all the meta boxes on the right hand and on the bottom. And in the long run, we'll have to do something with them. But if we change them now, we'll make life horrible for a lot of people. And the way we integrate into the editor is even for WordPress, for the WordPress world, rather weird. There's very few plugins that actually integrate into the editing experience itself. The way we highlight things in the current editor is not something that other plugins do. So changing that is relatively safe. Changing everything around that touches on 10,000 plugins that have to be updated. Touches on like probably a couple 100,000, if not more, custom configurations of sites.
A lot of plugins watch each other's meta boxes, but I cannot see a meta box that's in another frame. So,
yeah, so we integrate with advanced custom fields, which is a very popular plugin for a lot of websites out there. We look at their meta boxes that they add and we use their content. We can't do that in Gutenberg. So right now, the hosts I'm talking to, and we talk to a lot of web hosts regularly, the larger ones are almost openly saying, we'll just disable Gutenberg if it comes out too quickly because it will break our support department. That is a risk. It's a risk for us too.
Yeah.
So we are looking at how do we manage all this. It's a lot of, well, there's a lot of work to be done. I think it's good to talk about it at things like this and to have people like you try Gutenberg, play with it,
yeah.
see what you think, hey, this doesn't work well, because that feedback gets dealt with.
And hey, this works really well is also an important one, because there's so much stuff to look forward to in this project. And I'm really frustrated by the fact that I'm stressing a lot about this, just because of the deadline, basically. While in fact, I'm so in favor of this experiment, of this project. Like, this can really mean a major uplift for the WordPress user experience and for things that we can build on top of editing web content.
So the long view here is important too. The long view is that this is the first step of a longer process where this experience will be migrated to editing menus, to editing widgets, to editing the whole site. So we'll slowly move to a different WordPress, where all of these things are, in many ways, much more similar than they are now. Because if you currently switch through the editor of a site, if you go to customize, let me save this draft if we want to get back to it.
Jimmy, can you pass the mic there? There was a
if I go to customize, this is a different experience. Buttons look different, things are in different spots, etc. I can edit my menus here and add pages to them. I can leave the customizer, go to Appearance, Menus, and I can edit my menus here in a different experience. We're teaching people 20 different types of screens, which is stupid. And that's something that I hope in the long run Gutenberg will fix. The problem is that right now, Gutenberg, for instance, doesn't work with WooCommerce yet to edit your product descriptions. So you'd have one thing for editing your posts and pages and the other thing for editing your product descriptions. That feels like adding, by trying to come up with a solution for all of this, adding another experience on top of it, instead of fixing the problem. Was there a question somewhere?
Yeah,
there was a question.
Yeah. Well, that is loud, isn't it? Doesn't actually solve a problem as well, though, doesn't it? All the rogue plugins that are out there.
Sorry, Dave, into the mic because your northern thick accent is what.
All the rogue plugins that are out there at the moment would just be wiped away, wouldn't they? You know what I mean? It's almost like if they forced this through and there was a big uptake on it, like you said yourself, these little one-shop chops, you know what I mean? They won't be able to exploit it the way it's being exploited at the moment. I mean, there was a big hack 2 days ago that's affecting everything below 4.33, and that was a plugin exploit again.
Yeah, but the problem is that I don't think most people realize where WordPress would be if it wasn't as hackable as it is right now.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In a positive way. The fact that WordPress plugins can start off as being poorly coded, not very well secured, but awesome SEO plugins, like I started Yoast Seo. I mean, the first version of Yoast Seo was poorly coded in many ways, and he knows because he's been fixing my shit for the last 3 years. But, I mean...
He's become a much better programmer.
But every plugin starts out small. No one starts with 1 million users. And every plugin developer starts out with shit code because they have no clue. They fixed their own problem, and they're kind enough to release it. And that is both the tragedy and the sadness of the WordPress world, and its biggest power.
Yeah, of course.
Because that is what's scary, because large websites start running plugins that they shouldn't run because they haven't been properly vetted. But at the same time, there's a plugin for bloody everything. There's like 45,000 plugins on the plugin repository right now, and only 10 of those or so are ours. So there's like 30,000-ish plugin developers at the very least.
And that's something Wix is never going to be able to top.
What you need for this is the power of community. And in the current process, the power of community is being moved away slightly, which is not a good thing. Because the power of community is literally what has brought WordPress to where it's at. Because if you look at it technically, Drupal is a better CMS. Typo 3 is technically a better CMS. It's unusable for the average user.
I think Drupal introduced the Wysiwyg editor last year.
Yeah, Drupal 8 introduced the Wysiwyg editor. Drupal 8 is funny in many ways because Drupal 8 is much like what we're doing right now. Drupal 8 left everything behind. So sites that are on Drupal 7 cannot upgrade to Drupal 8. They have to rebuild their site. Magento did the same thing. Drupal has done this before, Magento has done this before as well. Backwards compatibility is not something that a lot of developers believe in.
So we've been empowering users. I mean, that's the strength of WordPress. I think that WordPress is a platform that has been empowering users to do pretty much whatever they want. And if they were missing something, like in a relatively simple way, make it happen. Might not be the most stable way, but they can make it. Like you need to learn 2 functions basically as a developer in order to be able to integrate with WordPress. And those are add action and add filter. Like it's really super simple, and then you can change wording on a page, or you can do whatever. And that kind of flexibility has had lots of problems, but has really empowered people and do-it-yourself mentality like no other system has done.
Here. Up front. Yeah, throw it hard.
So, Sebastian, you probably had a lot of discussion about this with Automatic as well. What are the key arguments?
Well, we are having more and more discussions. So Automatic is not a person you can talk to. Automatic is a very big company.
Of course.
Well, a very big company in respect to what we are, not compared to Google or something. I've had my discussions with Matt, who leads all of this. I think we see eye to eye on most of it. I think we have similar visions for the end goal. I don't think we see eye to eye on timing yet, but I'm used to getting my way. No, we'll have large discussions about that. It's why I'm flying to Nashville. I wasn't actually going to WordCamp US this year. I will be there this year because I think there will be a lot of discussions around this and around timing and around when are we going to do this and what exactly are we going to do.
We've pretty much interrupted our entire product roadmap to work on Gutenberg mostly. Also because that's potentially a very good part of our product roadmap. Yeah. But like our UX designer is working on Gutenberg, sharing ideas, discussing with people. We've got our software architect looking at Gutenberg right now. A couple of developers. I'm mostly looking at Gutenberg and thinking about Gutenberg all day, every day now.
So
does Matt care about the backward compatibility?
Yes. It's not that Matt wants to break the web.
No.
Matt is in this for very similar reasons as we are, I think, just to make it all better. We don't necessarily always see eye to eye on the best way to get from A to B. But that doesn't mean that we disagree on what B is.
Yeah.
Richard?
So kind of following up on that, I hear you talk about either Gutenberg or old version, while most of the other major platforms I use when they introduce a new version, they always give the option to either use the old version or the new. What would be the reason not to just put Gutenberg on top of the other two, or giving the users the possibility to switch back? And like for the meta boxes thing, if a meta box is going to be a block, why wouldn't they now transfer current meta boxes to blocks already?
Because developers have to do that. So there's a core philosophy behind this in WordPress, which is choices, not options. Which is not necessarily the thing we've been best at in Yoast Seo, I admit, because we have a lot of options.
That's
we're getting rid of more and more of them because we're figuring out that as you give people more options, you get more support questions and you get less happy users.
And not only this, it's also just not better for the quality of the product.
So I think we can reach the stage where we can actually replace the old editor. And yes, there will probably be a plugin. There is already a plugin on the repository that prepares for this. It's called Gutenberg Free. And I think people will use that. And there's probably a lot of people that either won't upgrade or will install that plugin immediately. There's probably also a lot of hosts that will do something like that if they think that this will cause a lot of support questions. Because if this is going to cause a lot of support questions, I can tell you one thing. The economics of hosting at $5 a month stopped working fairly quickly. It just doesn't work like that. If you have customers, even if you're a design agency and you host your sites for your clients and suddenly all your clients start calling, and you're working on for a month or two on getting your customers to learn the new interface, that is not going to work for anybody. Those economics do not work. So there will be a lot of switching back and forth. There will be a lot of bitching. That's why I hope we can make it a lot more fluent. I hope we can bring it back to where we are now, in many ways, in how it works and looks, and then make it better.
Maybe it's good to stress one thing, like the team behind Gutenberg is really taking all of these issues extremely seriously, but it's a small team, and they're dying to get feedback. One of the reasons we're doing this talk is just to let you know what's coming. I hope you see the great potential in that project, and I hope you see like also the risks involved and why it's important for us to participate and help that team deliver the best possible experience and the best possible solution. Because
to put it in perspective, by the amount of people we're putting into Gutenberg now, we're basically doubling the amount of development power in Gutenberg.
So there's a couple of really great people behind it, but there's just a small amount, and we just need to iterate more, I think, before we get to something stable.
Flip.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for discussing with us the positive parts of it, as well as the things that make some concerns for you. Yeah. In fact, you are stating that you are putting a lot of resources into developing or redeveloping your plugin. Wouldn't that actually count for an expedited release? And isn't it actually pushing the plugin builders? And isn't this the only way to really push that market to expedite it?
It's a question, yeah.
Well, it is one of the things I have in my mind all the time. We're pushing our own roadmap back. The things that we wanted to do because we want to make this better. It's a double-edged sword. It's really tough. I think that they need our input to make it better because they are not plugin developers. So we are making requests that they haven't thought about because they are not working on integrating with it, they're building it, which is really a different thing. I wish more people were involved, I'll be very honest. I've been missing a lot of companies. And in many ways, it's a bit scary for a lot of people because some of the bigger plugin companies out there are page builders, and they are basically what we're replacing. So we're taking a piece of the WordPress economy that's making a ton of money, and we're replacing it with something in core, which is very scary to them.
My worry would be if you push out the release date, then the building process of the plugins would not really get started quickly enough.
I'm afraid that's one of the reasons why Matt is calling the early date all the time. At the same time, if you say stuff like that and you want people to start integrating, then it has to be ready to be integrated with.
It's just a tough message when people are on the one hand proving a concept and on the other hand talking about integrating into a live product. I mean, we actually propose an approach where we say, okay, let's get to an MVP and then we can do it in March, right? And the MVP would be a block editor that just replaces this tiny MCE, and then you can still submit a post with a PHP request and all that kind of stuff. That would be a way smaller change that would completely introduce most of the perks of the new editing experience, but would be less hard of a break with the past, so less stuff breaks and we can actually ship faster, and people have an actual incentive to integrate. We can have a migration path, we can have a deprecation plan, all that kind of stuff, but that's currently lacking in my opinion.
Yeah, so if you look at the current editor, and I hope all of you have the current editor in your head with what that currently looks like and where Yoast Seo is. So in the top right, you'll usually see two things from Yoast Seo, a readability and an SEO score. We can't integrate there yet. At the top, right now in the old editor, you would be able to change the URL of the post. You currently can't because the REST API, which all of this is built on, does not have support for changing the URL of a post yet. So the very underpinnings of what we're doing are not there yet. And we can add boxes to the extended settings there, but we can't add native boxes yet. We can't access the content. There's many things that we would need to do.
And we want to work on that also, to bring that stuff to Gutenberg, but it takes time.
So we need to work with them to make all of that accessible. And at the same time, we need that first before developers can start integrating. And you can't ask of a 1 or 2 person plugin development shop to first build the APIs into WordPress to then extend them. That's just too much of an ask, especially because, and we haven't talked about that much yet, but this is all built on JavaScript. This is React. This is new to 90% of the WordPress world. This is basically learning a new language.
Yes.
So what's your first experience performance-wise? Is it better than?
Oh, this is going to beat everything that we've done before, yes. If we do it well. It's going to be tough though, because there's a lot of trade-offs. Yeah. But in the end, this will be a much better experience for the end user, I'm rather sure. The library that is currently being used and that I think we'll keep on using, although I think we've not made an official decision on that either yet as a community, is React, which is built by Facebook, which keeps improving at an incredible pace and which is very stable in many ways.
They just did a rewrite, not changing any API, with performance increases of like 50% or more. Like it's incredible how performant that stuff is.
So in the past, all of this used to be rendered on the server and then sent to you. Right now, all of this is rendered in your browser based on stuff that gets grabbed from the server, but the entire system of how this stuff works changes. Funnily enough, we did a change like that in Yoast Seo, is that 2 years ago now? Yoast Seo 3.0, which is for us one of the most painful releases that we've ever done, because we switched 20 to 30% of our code from PHP to JavaScript, and we moved from doing the analysis as you save the post to doing it real time. We've done, in a very small containerized bit, we've done what they did. And we've suffered for it for 4 to 5 months as we worked through all the bugs and all the issues that we ran into and all the stuff that didn't work.
I've also
been
seen
here.
I've also seen performance problems with Gutenberg. I mean,
yeah, the front-end performance of Gutenberg was a problem. It seems to have been solved mostly.
I mean, in the back end, like what we had with Yoast Seo.js, so our content analysis in JavaScript was when you get really long texts, all that content has to go through all that code all the time. You get like memory problems, performance problems, things become really slow. So Gutenberg is actually going to help us make it much more performant because we can do things based on blocks and we can cache blocks separately, analyze only the block that has been changed, so that's awesome. But Gutenberg itself has to render all of that content. So if you have a really long post, that's going to ask more of your computer than a small one. So I've heard stories on some computers where the example post that they use to showcase all of the different features that Gutenberg offers just takes, to open the editor just takes you like 8 seconds already. So you're waiting for 8 seconds before you can start editing. If we still have that kind of problems, when we go live, that's just unacceptable. So we need to fix all that stuff.
So this is one of the reasons also why more people need to look at it. Automatic and Yoast share something. We all have bloody fancy, very fast new MacBooks that we work on every day. These things are 10 times as fast as the average computer that WordPress is being used on. And we're very, very bad at actually optimizing for that experience instead of for our own. So there's a lot of things in that, on that side that need work. I know Andrea is here as well today. He did an accessibility talk.
Yeah.
He's one of our colleagues who works on accessibility full time. He works 50% of his time on Yoast Seo and 50% of his time we donate to WordPress core. And he's been spending all of his time on Gutenberg. And, well, there are issues. There are so many issues that right now, if it's released, it will be disabled in pretty much every government site in Europe because nobody will be allowed to use it because it's not meeting even the most simple regulations. So there's a lot of work to do. I don't think it's impossible to do all that. In fact, I think we'll manage just fine and we'll get to the right result. It's just, it'll take a lot of time.
And these problems need to be addressed. And we can only find them if we collectively test and harden and improve that product. There's a question over there. Got another 5 minutes.
Am I right in saying that WordPress will launch this when WordPress want to launch it? Whether it's December or January. And by that time, there is no way 90-odd% of the plugins will work. What happens?
Well, WordPress will launch this when Matt wants to launch it. WordPress is not a democracy.
That's what I mean.
Matt Mullenweg leads this project and he has final say on everything. At the same time, if all of the lead developers, or a large portion of the lead developers and the committers and the people that contribute code to WordPress on a regular basis are against it, I don't think it will launch. Because he's a benevolent dictator, but a benevolent dictator is only a dictator when the people allow him to be.
And he's also quite benevolent.
Yeah, as I said, he doesn't want to kill this world.
No.
So,
I mean, it sounds like if it happens midway through the year, we'll be very lucky.
I don't know, because there's a lot of aspects to that. If suddenly at WordCamp US, for instance, more people start working on it and we get development power and we get some decisions through and we get a roadmap of, okay, we're going to do this in the first release. And I think that bit is very important. We're going to do this. We've done prototyping, we're now going to decide that this is what we're going to build, and that's what we're going for, and I think June could actually be doable. Depending on what we decide, this is.
Yeah.
And I think
the decision process for that is weird because it's a community process and there are very few official roles in that. So there's a lot of discussion and a lot of, Well, just sitting around talking about these things with different groups and and then at the same time, at some point a decision will be made. But we saw this with the REST API in WordPress. Matt didn't want to merge it, and the lead developers did want to merge it, and it got merged.
So I guess a very important point to stress is that feedback given on the Gutenberg project and feedback given on WordPress in general is mostly listened to, and it's mostly heard and considered. We are also part of the WordPress community. I don't want it to get into like us versus them kind of rhetoric, because we are part of it. Like we want to be part of that team. So
the thing that
so there is a discussion.
The thing we bring, I think, is a better understanding of what the real use case looks like in many ways. Because we have very different users than...
I wish page builders would be more involved.
Yeah. So I wish too that people who use page builders all the time would actually be more involved in this discussion, because then WordPress is so big and there's so many different people using it that the amount of use cases for the project is insane by now.
Yeah. We have time for one final question.
And if not, we'll just wait for everyone else to come back.
Yeah, there's one more over here.
Here up front.
I have a question about the backwards compatibility. You said there will be a plugin that allows TinyMC to come back.
Yes.
For certain pages. But what happens to...
This is still TinyMC, by the way.
Okay. But what happens to a developer who wants to, on the one side, do the new Metabox equivalent and still support old pages, so they will have to do every work twice?
Exactly.
Yes, that's what we will have to do for at least a couple of years.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'll have to be done twice, but that's always the case with large changes like this. One of the things that I think we should do as a community is write up documentation on how to do that well. Because that's actually going to be a very common use case, because not everybody upgrades their WordPress the day of the release.
Or wants to downgrade the editor because he has done some custom stuff.
So most plugins that integrate deeply into this will have to maintain 2 integrations for probably a couple of years.
And there's a lot we can do to mitigate the pain that plugin developers have from that, but we need to do it.
Okay, thank you very much, and see you the rest of the day.
Thank you.